Yo,
What's up, y'all?
How you doing, brother?
how's it going? Damn, man,
How y'all
you look
doing?
like you're in like 8K, bro.
This is my
Yeah,
OnlyFans camera.
I'm gonna need the link to that setup.
Yeah, Chris, where do you get that? Amazon?
This,
Yeah.
the OnlyFans or the
No,
Is
the
OnlyFans on Amazon,
no,
bro?
the cam,
Checking that
bro.
shit out right now.
The cam.
Send
I
the
do
link.
uh I do virtual keynotes, so I have like my whole camera set up and stuff and lights and all that.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
bro.
Putting my setup to shame. Jeez.
You're good, you're good.
So real quick, Chris, I just give a brief introduction, for the viewers and the fans of who you are. I've known you for a little bit, so thank you for coming on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
so my name is Chris, and I was born with a physical disability. I have a super cool prosthetic arm now, but I hid my disability for 17 years. Even when I started my bodybuilding journey, I hid my disability from everything. I wore a glove the majority of my life, and it wasn't until I was 28, 27 years old that I stopped hiding my disability. So my whole life,
Mhm.
I felt like a monster, you know? And I always saw the bodybuilding magazines. So I was like, damn, that's so cool, But I'm a one-handed guy living in a two-handed world. So I was like, that's probably not possible. That's not realistic for me, but it's still cool to get the magazines. It took me 17 years to get over my disability, be able to compete, but past that, build a career and a life that I could have never dreamed of. And all of that happened because of my disability, because of my type 1 diabetes, because of basically what happened to me in my life. And I just made better choices. So now it's my job to help people see their world without limits. I was on a TV show with Dwayne The Rock Johnson called Titan Games, and been in People Magazine and all kinds of cool stuff, Netflix and all this. But the hardest thing for me was being able to go into Walmart, and not hide my disability. And I'm not even talking Target at this point. My standards are real low. Walmart was
Yeah.
so yeah, that's where I'm at now.
You said something really like that, just like my brain. You stopped being disabled, you said at the age of 28. What does that mean for the viewers? Because to me, like I perceive that as like, hey, this is not gonna hold me back anymore. Now I could fully flourish and, walk in my purpose.
Yeah, man. What I talk about in my career is communication, specifically language, and it's so important to me. A lot of people will say it's semantics, but I truly believe like language is that first part. You always hear that phrase, what communication is key, right? I
Yes.
don't I don't think that's step one. I think that's step two. Because self-communication is more important. If you can't communicate with yourself, how the hell do you expect to communicate with someone else? Like,
Exactly.
we expect from other people what we aren't willing to give ourselves, and that makes no sense to me. So I stopped being disabled at 27, but I still have a disability. There's a difference because I'm not disabled. I'm just maybe I have to adapt. I can find a way, which I've done with powerlifting, breaking world records, doing all this stuff. But it was not because my disability changed, but because the method in which I acted around it changed. So for me, the narrative needed to change because I couldn't change my physical state. And too many people quit when they run into that first barrier or that fifth barrier or that 100th barrier. The game is adaptation, whether that's hypertrophy or life or romance or anything. Adaptation is key. And for me, I just didn't try and adapt enough until I gave curiosity a chance and said, instead of saying like, oh, I can't do this because of my hand or because of my diabetes, I started asking, but how could I if I had to?
Mhm.
How could I? Like I can't finish this project. I can't finish this task. Instead of saying that, that's language. I can't. You're committing to a belief, which feelings are not facts. We can talk about that all day.
Mhm.
Instead of saying I can't, questioning it and saying, how could I?
How could I?
Opened up a world of possibility.
Yeah, that is just like the epitome of like, what I speak about all the time between like the victim and victor mentality.
Yeah.
Self-talk is like most important. Because, like you said, instead of saying I can't, say I can, in your head, and you repeat that enough times, your whole outlook and perspective changes.
So I want
Everyone's
to
good.
I want to
Go
mention
ahead.
that too. I'm not a positivity hippie.
Yep.
I'm not a motivational speaker like Tony Robbins, where I'm just like rah, rah, rah. I'm chanting positive affirmations in a burning building. I'm gonna
Yep.
get the fuck out, you know?
Yeah.
My thing is,
You still
uh,
got to process those
yeah,
feelings too. Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's
there's
all
a
real.
hundred different ways.
That's very real. But at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, how can I make this suck less? I'm
Yeah.
more of a cynical realist, instead of saying
Yeah.
like, how can I make this so joyous? I'm like, how can I make this suck less? If you get a flat tire, you don't set the other tires on fire, set the car on fire, you
Yeah.
deal with the problem at hand. But so many of us, we take one problem and we make it five, or we dig it layers deep. So at minimum, instead of trying to make my life better, I said, how can I stop making my life worse? That helped so much.
I think a lot of our thought, most of our thought is subconscious. And like if you're trying to rewire the way you think, I mean, you have moments like right now where we're talking about it. So you're actively thinking about, okay, how do I about myself? How do I change the way I think? It's almost like mile markers. So it's like, okay, when you have the opportunity to be conscious of your thoughts, make sure you're thinking the right things so that the more often you do that, it's going to reframe your subconscious thoughts because like we're habitual creatures and like we're all going to be prone um to acting a certain way, and that's why your environment's so important. It's why the people around you are so important because it could be as simple as maybe your morning lifts are with the wrong people, and so you're constantly being fed the wrong kind of message. um so I think that's, kind of a lot, what long lines of what you're saying in terms of like reframing the way you think and how important it is to not let one problem turn into five. Um, just like with a lift, like an injury, right? Like let's say you strain your pec. It's like you could have the mentality, well, I can't bench press right now. I can't do this. But what about all the other things you can do? We've seen stories of people like, oh, like how do you make so much progress in your back? Well, I injured my knee and I couldn't do legs forever, and I built up my back and used that as an opportunity. So I think it just goes back to reframing the way you think and those thought patterns.
Can we talk about how damaging language is? And this is something
Yeah.
I do with a lot of audiences I speak for. I've spoken for companies like Nike and Tommy Hilfiger and all these big companies, and I show people why language is so important. Just real quick, and anyone listening, you guys can do this here too. Can you say the word silk 5 times fast?
Silk, silk,
So
silk,
silk, silk,
silk,
silk, silk.
silk,
What do
silk.
cows drink?
Milk.
Milk.
Water. Cows drink water. They don't drink
Oh,
milk.
okay,
So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
You
now
play into the
imagine.
psyche,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Now imagine if I can just use words with a rhyme to get you to say the wrong thing. Imagine you saying I'm lazy, I'm lazy, I'm lazy, I'm lazy. You're gonna spend your whole life believing that you're lazy when in reality you are not lazy. You've had a habit of being lazy in the past, but that's not who you are, it's what you did. That's not who you are. So when I help people separate habit from identity, they finally give themselves a chance. And if you say I can't, you will confirm confirmation bias has us finding ways to prove ourselves right because the ego hates nothing more than to be wrong. So if you say you're lazy, if you say you can't, if you say you can't compete, if you say you can't build muscle, if you say you're a hard gainer, you say anything like that, you are going to look for proof based off of an assertion that might not even be true. And chances are it isn't. Language is the root of all belief, and belief results in action. If you don't believe, no action is going to support a wrong belief, you know? So that's why it's so important. I always go to communication and language because I listen to how people talk and I listen to what they say. You'd be surprised, you probably do it too, how many people confidently say things as if they're fact, but they're not.
I don't know the
But
numbers
they
myself.
believe it. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
they believe
the
it's
numbers
stupid.
myself. But go ahead, G, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, basically it's just it's training your subconscious, and you're already limiting yourself by that belief and telling yourself that you can't do something or you're incapable, and that's why being positive, like speaking positivity into your life and having people around you can also speak that positivity and uplift you is very important because when you're in a dark place, sometimes it's hard to come out of that on your own, and not everybody can come out of that on their own, and it's good to have that that tight circle that people that are doing well, and they have a good head on their shoulders, and they can preach some life into you and light, and it'll take you a long way. So what you're saying, the power of the tongue, like Chris always says, is very important.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I want to let's break it down even further though, because let's say you're not blessed to have a good group around you. Let's say you're by yourself. I've been in some of the darkest moments of my life with mental health and like, dude,
Yes.
imagine growing up with a disability, being told you're broken and
Mhm.
believing that you don't deserve love or anything like that. Believing that everything and everyone else does is capable, but you're not. And I know you have type 1 too, but
Yeah.
having a disability and an invisible disease, it's a minute by minute condition and it's a disease that none of us asked for. It's a disability I didn't ask for. What do you do when you don't think anyone can associate with you? That's where it comes down to, okay, no amount of positivity is going to fix this situation, but a large amount of negativity will make this worse. So I wrote a book on change and I speak a lot about change, but one of the interesting facts is it's called the law of induced demand. There is a highway in Texas that they added a bunch of lanes. Now it has 26 lanes. Okay. Did you know with roadway and construction, by adding more lanes, you can actually increase the travel time?
Hmm.
By adding more, they actually increased the length of travel time. Why? Because more people started using those roads now. That increased the problems. And the reason I bring that up is because so many times we try and throw more at a situation where less is needed. You don't need more drugs. You don't need more coaches. You don't need more shoes. You don't need more stringers. You don't need more of all of this stuff. Sometimes you need to do less of the stuff that's hurting you and more of the fancy, shiny stuff that you think would get you ahead. It's usually the stuff that we're doing that's hurting us most, not the stuff that we don't have.
We also need to talk about not just the more variable, but changing anything. Like sometimes you just need to let a situation marinate. Like
Yep.
sometimes
Yep.
doing anything at all, like, and it goes to like, say, coaching, for example. A lot of coaches in bodybuilding will make changes to their athlete like during peak week just for the sake of it. Like they'll see their athlete
Burger and
and
three diuretics.
the athlete will actually look good and they'll tell the athlete, hey, you're looking great, now let's do this. They get greedy, right? They're like, okay, well, we're doing this well, let's try to do something else just for the sake of it. Or and a lot of it is coming from it's arrogance, really, because then it's
Yep.
like that coach is now thinking, well, I did such a good job here, I want to go that extra mile to be able to get that much farther with them instead of just taking the win for the win and writing it out. And it comes with a lot of things. I work in software sales. You know, all these software companies now, ever since COVID, are overhiring, right? So you have software companies that have a great product. There's big demand. Oh, let's hire more account executives to sell that product. Well, guess what? When you have too many hands in a cookie jar, there's less to sell, and you're saturating the market. So
Yep.
it can go along the lines with a lot of different things. And sometimes you need to ride a situation. It also goes to our point about mental health, right? Everyone on this call has struggled with it at one point or another. My biggest battles were last year, and sometimes you just need to sit in it for a while. And you want in the moment you want to get out of it right away because it's so uncomfortable. But that's where like being comfortable in the uncomfortable is so important. And that's what a lot of bodybuilding teaches you because frankly, a lot of time most of the time your body feels like shit in bodybuilding, but it's for a certain goal or outcome. So I know I wouldn't mind talking a bit about that too, about spending time in uncomfort and not necessarily going against the grain, like just accept the uncomfort for what it is and then see the bigger picture after that and what you want to do and accomplish.
Yeah. So one, we'll start off with like this whole concept of radical acceptance. No amount of resisting reality will change it. You
Hmm.
can't resist your way out of changing the situation. Like whether it's an injury, whether it's a disability, whether it's whatever it is, a placing, no amount of resisting what the reality is will change it. And we try and argue these semantics in our brains, but like at the end of the day, focus on what you can do right now and how you can make it better or how you can not make it worse. I think a lot of people don't accept their current situation. They're constantly spent wanting to be somewhere else. We do this, and I think it's a Western culture thing, but it's also like a dopamine addiction thing. We constantly want to be somewhere else. Man, just once I become a pro, then it'll be great. Once I go to nationals, then it'll be great. Once I get to week three, then it'll be great. Damn, if it's always great somewhere else and it's never great here, when do you actually feel great?
Appreciate. When do you
When do you
appreciate
actually
what you have?
experience greatness? It's a carrot on the stick. And that's why I used to blame bodybuilding because, I spent all these years, I did powerlifting. I broke one world record and four state records in powerlifting, deadlifted 675 pounds. That was awesome. I got to my goal and I was like, damn, what now? So then I pursued bodybuilding, spent all this time. I did my first competition and I won my first competition. I was like, damn, that was cool. But then it was done. And I was like, what now? I was like, do I have to keep going? And sometimes we tell ourselves we have to, but you don't. You are only on the hamster wheel that you choose to be on. You
Bingo.
don't always have to need more, and more is not a place. You'll never get to more. And that's okay to keep the hunger alive, but as long as you're in control. The second you lose control to where your life's going because of things you think you should do, that's a false narrative that you have now allowed to control your life. You have to decide, what do I truly want? And am I doing everything I can to work towards that goal? If I don't truly want it, why are you working towards it? And if I truly want it, why am I not working towards it? Those are really the options you have?
Here's the beautiful thing about bodybuilding, though. It can teach you the right things or the wrong things depending on how you
Absolutely.
go about the sport. So, for example, and we've spoken about this on a lot of podcasts episodes we've done, but all you hear about is road to pro. I want my pro card. This, and this. That is, apart from the Olympia, that's about the highest goal anyone can have, right? And obviously, once you get your pro card, you're like, okay, now I want to be an Olympian. Apart from that, there's really nothing else you can accomplish in the sport. So I think it's so important to appreciate the other milestones in the sport because it's not just pro card or bust. I mean, imagine any other sport, right? Like if you wanted to be a pro soccer player, like maybe you're a 5-year old, right? You grow up wanting to be a pro soccer player. There's so many things that you can achieve before becoming a pro, like going to college, winning a league or whatever it is. But for some reason in bodybuilding, we've condensed it, and a lot of athletes are just looking at the end goal the entire time.
It's social
But
media though.
if you
A
think
lot
about it
of
this
it's
way,
social
what do
media.
we all bodybuilding is delayed gratification. And it's supposed to be the
Mhm.
best practice of that. So for example, I was thinking about this earlier. A lot of people look at us that are outside the sport and be like, I don't know how you do it. Like you don't eat pizza all the time. You say no to all this stuff. And then I was thinking today, I was like, but how many people have really tasted a pizza after not having it for 6 months or whatever
That's
it is?
that's a good perspective. That's
And
a
it's
really good
like
perspective.
I get to enjoy certain things that people take for granted so much more often, and it could be a beautiful sport, right? Like I was just thinking, yeah, like prep is hard right now. I'm 7.5 weeks out, but guess what? Like I'll be in Vegas in October with my friends, and it'll be such a euphoric moment because I'll have achieved my goal, and then I get to enjoy all this food, and like none of my friend group that is outside of the sport will have had that feeling ever because they're eating this stuff maybe once every week or twice a week.
That's a
So
dude. I've never heard that perspective, and I can relate to that on multiple levels. One from competing in the past, but also with diabetes,
Diabetes, yeah.
low blood sugar. You've never tasted food when you're low, and it's delicious. So, like,
you chime in, man.
It hits
Hey,
different.
hey, G hit the number 33 today with his
I
blood
saw
sugar.
that. That was
How
great.
was it?
Crazy.
How
Yeah,
The sour patches instantly.
yeah.
That's
how were
nuts.
their sour patches, G?
Amazing.
Oh,
Um,
they're delicious. You eat the dumbest stuff because you'll have like Sour Patches and milk and like the gross stuff, but your mind just goes crazy. But that's a really good perspective because you could say, someone says, "Oh, you don't get to eat pizza all the time." And you're like, "Oh, you don't get to know what pizza tastes like after not having it for so long." Like that's just a counter, and that's life. Neither one is better or worse. It's a choice. And you just have to remember, you're the one choosing to do prep, or you're the one choosing not to do prep. And that's a choice, and neither are better or worse. You're not better for being a pro or worse for not being a pro. You're worse for not
Damn,
appreciating the
I like that.
process. And I have a concept that this has taken me so long to be okay with, and dude, it's changed my life. It's called Stack Your Wins. And I got my degree in exercise science and kinesiology. I had a super successful online training business, over 100 clients worldwide. It was so much fun, but also it made me realize what people actually want. I had my first client. She was 5'4", 274 pounds. What was her goal?
Oh,
Get
you
in
want us to
shape.
guess?
Yeah, what was her goal?
Lose weight.
Probably lose weight, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I thought too. But the bad thing is she told me her goal was to run a half marathon. And we have this assumption that we know what people should do. We have this assumption like I know what your goal should be. That's from society. Because her goal was just run a half marathon. Byproduct, she lost 80 pounds. Incredible. But that wasn't her main goal. She wanted to run a half marathon. And when we like start giving into what we think society wants, we start living for other reasons than what we want out of our life. We are not our past generation. We get to decide how we live, which is fantastic, you know? You should be motivated by something that drives you forward and you're working towards something. But at the end of the day, stack your wins. Because if you're not happy until you get a pro card, let's say you're going to get your pro card. Well, we know at least one person on this call is getting their pro card this year. We know that. But let's say it takes you 6 months or a year to get your pro card. You wake up tomorrow, no pro card, you lose. Following day, you wake up, no pro card, you lose. Following day, you lose. How many times are you willing to lose just to have one win?
Well, then you're
Versus
stacking your losses instead of stacking your wins.
exactly versus, hey, 99% of people didn't wake up and go to the gym this morning. I went to the gym, win. I
Daily wins.
fasted cardio this morning, win. Tomorrow I went late at 9 p.m. to do my back workout, even though I didn't want to, win. When you stack your wins, you have a lot better quality of life. And I'm not talking about being soft or getting participation trophies. I'm talking about actually rewarding yourself for the shit you're actually doing instead of brushing it off like, oh yeah, but I'm not a pro yet. Oh yeah, but I'm not a pro yet. Bro, that mindset is toxic, dude.
I've had
It,
two friends
It's
look at me.
hilarious.
Two friends almost these balloons. Two,
love that,
two,
bro. Celebrate
two,
those friends, bro.
two friends because I was saying, oh, like my goal is to go to my first national show this year, and then they were like, I'm gonna reframe your mindset. I want you to think about your pro card. I'm like, no. I said that they made me feel like I was cutting myself short, and I'm like, no. My goal is goal by goal, right? Like everyone's trying to make this like 10x mindset of you need to shoot for 10 times of what you actually want. And that's just not how anything in this world works. Like, yeah, like you could say, I want to be president of the United States, but guess what? You're still gonna have to work backwards and figure out all of the other milestones you have to do to get there. You don't go to pro without doing a national show. So it's like, unless you're just kind of operating in this fugazi world, but you have no goals, as long as you have goals that are a reach in some respect, like you're fine, right? It doesn't make you a low achiever, right? It just means you're more pragmatic and a little bit more structured. Like,
Bro,
But that's also perspective too. Like I feel like, you could always aim high, and if you don't make it that high, but you take Chris's philosophy and stacking your wins, you could appreciate that journey and, not me and G had this conversation the other day. I told him I don't need a pro card to validate that I'm good enough to do this because I've already done something a lot of people haven't done, which is actually step on stage and be competitive. So having that mindset, if I get a pro card, I get it. If not, I still bodybuild. I still achieved a lifelong dream that I always had. Because just like Chris, those magazines influence, millions. So I feel like having like that big dreaming big, but also being realistic with your dreams, you stay on course.
it's a compound effect. Like you can get to where you want to get, but you can also enjoy the process too. It's not like a one
Yeah.
or the other thing. And like imagine if you meet a girl or a guy and you're like, my goal is to get married to you this year. They'd be like, bro, what the fuck? Like that's you, dude. Like we've only been together for like 2 months. Like, why do you have to rush that end process instead of just enjoy what you currently have? Like
Yeah.
my goal was to crush my back workout today. That's it. And you do that, check one step closer to maybe becoming pro, but also doing this stuff daily, dude. It's the daily
Being
stuff.
present, you got to be present.
Like, and you're gonna have bad moments. I have them all the time. That's completely okay. But you can't sacrifice what you want for what you want right now. And a bad moment isn't always what you want, but you got to get through. You stack those
Mm.
things and you give yourself proof or evidence that you're capable. And when you know you're capable, you'll actually shoot for stuff like bigger goals, which is awesome, but they have to matter to you.
Yeah, and I think another thing is, setting long-term goals and like how you say shorter goals is better because if you put your expectation too high and then you fall short of that, that's what kind of discourages people from a lot of things. And that's also why
Expectations.
yeah, that's also why they end up giving up and they don't continue progressing because they thought so far ahead and they didn't think, hey, all right, 3 months from now I'm here, and then in 6 months from now I'm here. They don't look at the small everyday changes, and I think that's what's important is like you're saying, being present and enjoying the journey along the way.
Yeah, man. Like you give yourself a chance to enjoy the process because I'm sorry, but if it takes you 10 years or 5 years to go pro and you've sacrificed every relationship and you sacrificed everything to get there, you're gonna have a pro card with no one around you and 5 years of your life gone. And I don't know if you know, but when you get a pro card, they don't hand you a box of quality of life. That's on you. So it's your job to create that. And you have to be able to find that now because if you can't find it now, you'll never find it later. I remember like when I was just super depressed and unhappy with my body and like super negative, every accolade was just smashed by how I felt. Even when I did the show with The Rock, like I was on a national stage, like this was huge exposure, but I couldn't feel happiness because I was like, oh, it could be better. On to the next thing. Like I was never present. And like that's such a frustrating feeling to not be able to enjoy now in the process or pursuit of more. Like you got to find a way to do that, or else every medal, every placing just will lose so much of its true value because that medal and that trophy is awesome, but actually feeling fulfilled in the process, that's like irreplaceable, you know?
I don't know if you could talk about it, Chris, because you mentioned the rocks stuff. If you want to speak about what you're training for currently.
Yeah, so that is I can't openly discuss it, but there
Okay.
are other programs that I'm involved with and
Okay.
a lot of really cool opportunities. But that's something that I never thought would happen, being able to get on either TV shows or magazines, and you never know what comes from the decision to go to the gym, the decision to pursue something that you thought is impossible. Dude, I have two fingers on my left hand and a shorter left arm. How do you deadlift? You know, you go to deadlift for the first time and I'm bending my wrist all like cockeyed and stuff. And I lift the weight 135 and I was like, damn, that's crazy. You know, like there's no way I could do more. It was heavy. And I find a way, I build a hook and 225, 315, 405, all the way up to 675 over the course of a few years, competing against non-disabled people. And that decision to pursue, you could say greatness, but pursue like overcoming those obstacles every single time. Every time I failed, my mindset was like one step closer. I was like almost excited to get that next failure because I was like, dude,
That
that just means I'm so close. I'm so close. And when I stood up with 675 pounds in front of 10,000 people at the Arnold Sports Festival, like nothing beats that feeling of all of those failed moments
I did it.
were the reason I did it, you know, the reason I did it. And it's the choices I made. So now that gym stuff that I thought was just stupid led to speaking across the world, led to magazines and all of this stuff and, modeling on New York Fashion Week. Like, who would have ever thought that these kind of opportunities could come from a decision to believe in yourself and go one step further, just one step further? I don't need to be pro, just go one step further.
This is for everyone watching. This is the mindset you have to have. That self-talk could either make you flourish or hinder you from whatever you're chasing. And there's like a saying, like there's a graveyard full of people that, you know, were alive but didn't live. That's like a graveyard of lost dreams. And why? Why do we limit ourselves from pursuing what we truly want when it's only us versus us? That's how I take that phrase, you versus you.
Well,
Yeah.
look, we all have a gift in terms of the gift is uniqueness. And that's really what the gift is. Every one of the 7 billion people, however it is on the planet right now, there's no one the same. Even identical twins are different people. And we all have something that we can do that's special or can contribute. And like, I think about this all the time. Like, some of my friends that I used to play lacrosse with, or people from my hometown, and I meet up with them, and it's like some of them it's like almost like they turn into their dads. Like 2 years after college, they turn 45 real quick. And it's almost like they're blindly following what they think they should, or just go through the motions of life. Of like, okay, You graduate college, you get a job, you find a partner, you have a family, you get a house. And the thing is, like, I found myself getting down at sometimes. So I would go to these weddings and be like, why am I not at that point in life? Why don't I have a family yet? Why don't I have a house yet? But then I reminded myself, okay, well, there's so many things that I've been able to do that they haven't. I've played for a national team. I've traveled to 38 European cities. I've traveled the world. I helped build a sports league sales department. I'm now a bodybuilder. I now have a podcast, like meeting incredible people every week. And so that's when I just remind myself, okay, maybe I'm not as far as ahead as I thought in certain aspects of life, but there's also things that I've done that
You
group of
always wanted
people.
to do.
Right, that and then there's time and place for everything. And there's the beautiful thing is that a lot of stuff that I was jealous of or things that I felt like I was lacking for that they had, I still have plenty of time to achieve or find. Um, but the way I looked at it was like I'm only young once and I can only be an athlete for X amount of years. So I'm gonna ride that wave to the fullest. And then when I'm 40 years old, whatever it is, and I feel like my body's starting to get to the point where I can't do it anymore, and then I'll move on to something else. But for anyone listening, I think it's really important to take some risks. And also, can we talk about social media for a second and people being scared to put themselves out there? So the other day, I actually filmed the first ever kind of real style, like microphone, like just solo video of myself talking about my prep. And I had never really done that. Usually, my content is, gym related, motivational, whatever. But I hadn't really shared my perspective on my prep before camera myself to the camera. And that reel got like 10 times more views and traction than anything I had posted recently. So I think it just like goes to show like don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Um,
Vulnerable.
be
Pe
vulnerable, be unique, stop hiding behind, preconceived notions, right? Like of what we think is going to happen or how people are going to perceive us. It's so important to just put yourself out there. And if there's going to be people that judge you for it or act negatively to it, then you don't want those people in your life or following you anyway.
who
So,
knows what they're battling internally? Because you
exactly.
know what? After my brain injury, after me coming out with PTSD or getting diagnosed with PTSD, the moment I started being vulnerable with the people around me, the more people seem to open up. So when there's a preconceived notion you gotta be like, I'm a bodybuilder, when really we're human at the end of the day. So first of all, Alex, I just wanted to commend you. Good stuff talking. You're a great moderator. You could speak well, and people are gonna relate to that, you know.
By the way, it's
Um,
okay to feel a little bit nervous about it too, or a little scared,
a
right?
hundred percent.
Like, when I switched from being a pro lacrosse player to a bodybuilder, obviously my content changed quite a bit, right? And I definitely had those moments where I knew people were talking behind my back or like, why is he posing without a shirt or all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it wasn't until I got deeper into bodybuilding where I realized how many thousands of people do the same thing, right? Like they post their stuff, and I just got to the point where I cared less about it. I think we're all kind of lying to ourselves if we say we don't care what other people think because it's a very human thing, right? Like we don't operate in a silo. Like, of course, it is important to an extent of what people think of you. Like, for example, but it's the right people, right? So, like, I do care what G and Chris think of me. They're my closest friends, right? Like, I care because if they don't agree with something, like, maybe I am doing something wrong and have that conversation, right? But if there's people that are going to judge me for showing off my hard work on Instagram or whatever it is, then it's probably to Chris's point coming from a deep-rooted problem they have with themselves.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How do you know what people think?
Oh, I've had since instances quite a long time ago, but when I first switched to bodybuilding, I had friends of mine reach out and say, "Stop doing that." Like,
Okay, so that's
yeah.
what they said. But how do you know what they think? What happens if they're jealous?
Well, that's true. And that kind of goes to
Exactly
the
what I
point
was
of like
thinking.
the self-rooted. It took me a while to
the
understand that
internal,
it's probably
yeah,
coming from
How do
something
you know
other.
what anyone thinks?
Well, that's
you
true
never
too.
truly know.
Let's say you have a wife. How do you know she loves you? You don't.
Faith.
I stopped trying to know what people
Yeah.
think a long time ago. Not meaning I don't care, meaning I understand and I give in to the idea that I can never know. I can't. And I pulled this, well, it was off my wall already, but I pulled this to show you. Can you read that?
Yeah.
Yes, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca the Younger.
Nice.
The suffering we experience, whether it's discomfort, worried about what people think, is all in our imagination because we can't know what people think. We can only imagine it. And when we imagine it, we feel it. And when we feel it, it becomes real. It's not to say we can delete that, but it's to recognize what we're feeling is not what other people are thinking, but our interpretation of what we think other people are thinking.
It's an
And we
emotional projection.
It
and,
is 100%.
but it
And
becomes our reality.
it does.
Right.
It
So,
becomes our reality. We live
what
in this mental hell.
bodybuilding, how does bodybuilding become a reality? You practice it every
Yep.
day. And what people practice, they get good at. And if you practice worrying, if you practice stressing, if you practice running with these like negative self-loop things or these ideas of what people are saying about you, like what happens if people are extremely impressed when you post a shirtless selfie? What happens if people love the idea that you're posting on social more? We don't ever consider that. You've heard the phrase comparison is the thief of joy.
Sure.
Yep.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about the other part? Comparison provides joy when you compare to people who aren't doing what you're doing. Couldn't you
Mm.
compare yourself to people that would bring you joy? You're like, damn, I'm doing something no one else is doing. But we
Yeah.
don't do that. We
Well,
only compare to
yeah.
steal joy, not to build it.
It's the glass
That's a
half full analogy, which is probably the age-old analogy, but it's so applicable, right? Like the glass is either half full or half empty. Um, I chose to listen more or care more about the messages that I got. Like the other day, someone said, "Hey, I'm trying to lose weight. Like, do you have any tips for me?" Or I realized that there's probably a lot more people that see my content get motivated by it than I give myself credit for, and I just try to focus on those people rather than the people that would say something negative about it. Because at the end of the day, I'm 35, and I think over the past 2 years, I finally got to the point where like you can't please everyone, nor should you try to, right? I think it's really just more important about kind of being very thoughtful about who you're trying to accommodate or please and still have boundaries, but you can't please everyone and it's not your job to. Like your job isn't to please everyone in the world. You know, I was in a very bad relationship last year and it took me a long time to become comfortable with certain realities that came after it in terms of where's a negativity could come from in someone or how could it, to your point, it's like you don't know what someone thinks of you and you can't, and your first gut reaction is to blame yourself or whatever. And in reality, a person's life or the way they think is it's like a math equation, right? Like that's just the result of a lot of things that have happened to them and shaped them a certain way, and you are only part of like X percentage of that. So to blame yourself for a certain outcome entirely is really kind of you're cutting yourself short there. So I think for the people watching, make sure I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I would say probably the first step is to make sure that your closest circle is right, and then the rest should kind of follow suit. But what do they say? You're only as good as the closest six people around you or whatever. It's a good reflection of who you are. So Chris, I want to ask you like you have a good perspective on life. You're very astute and you're very conscious of things. How do you go about making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people? And is this something that you are conscious of on a like a yearly basis? Do you give yourself checks and balances in terms of like, okay, is this the right situation for me? Are these the right people I should be spending my time with?
Um, I will say one, just to speak to you said a word that's really important, and it's something I've changed like my philosophy on a lot. I stopped being so outcome based and I started being process based. When I'm outcome based, like even with your video that did well, imagine if it didn't do well. Would you have never done that video again? Maybe. But we tend to do that because we judge ourselves based on outcomes, not based on the work we did. You doing the video was the successful part, not you getting the views.
Mm.
Right,
So if we moved away from outcome based, we would never worry as much about what people think because that's not the goal. The goal was to do the thing, not get the thing.
right,
Mm.
Instead of the IFBB Pro card being the outcome, the process is that you did the stuff, you did the work. So that changed everything for me because I stopped being so outcome driven. You'll never get to where you want to go if you always make decisions like a coach who's making changes for outcomes, constantly looking to change outcomes instead of appreciate the process where they're at. For me, I have a very small circle, very, very small, just a few people. I don't even know if I have six people, to be honest. Um, but I'm okay with that. I have people that I'm on different levels or different tiers. People I say hi to, lots of people. People I would hang out with, lots of people. People that I genuinely connect with, very few people. One, limited energy for that kind of stuff. That's just me. I'm more of an introverted person. Even though I speak to thousands of people, I pride myself in being an introvert. That's just who I am. Um, but you have to be honest with yourself. Like, do you genuinely enjoy these people's company? Do they hold you accountable, but also like not overly critique you to be cynical? Like, do they want to see you like your downfall? You have to be honest with yourself. And I've been more and more okay with letting certain relationships go because the chapter is done, you know? And it's the dragging of those chapters that really makes our life a lot harder. So I think it's important to network. It's important to put yourself out there, especially as you're building your business. I am in a position where I spent a long time with my head down, building my speaking business, building everything that I've done. And now I'm truly enjoying the fruits of those labors. And dude, I'm at peace, content. And it's a great feeling to be on this side of things, you know?
I think you mentioned it earlier, but just being in that isolation period yourself and blocking out all the outside noise, you could really just listen to yourself and see what you truly want. And you could really point out, okay, is this person speaking life into me or are they just draining energy?
Yeah.
And you could, when you sit down in isolation, you sit down with those thoughts, you could truly see what's what.
Yeah. You ask yourself, would the way they speak to you or hang out with you and all that, if someone you love, would you treat them that way? And if no, then you know that's not really the right situation, you know?
Yep.
Uh, Surrounding yourself with like-minded people, but remember, not everyone is going to serve every cause either, you know? Some people are there for fun, some people are there to drive you. You can't make everyone be exactly who you need to be, but what you can do is be the person you need. That's
Hmm.
something you can always control. And don't forget, life changes. It was so hard for me to go from the fitness guy to like the speaker. That was really tough because my whole identity seemingly was fitness. So to go from like I'm the bodybuilder, I'm the power lifter, that's what I was known for, to like being the speaker, that's a hard shift. And I had to let go of the reins and be like, it's okay to have a new chapter. Because at the end of the day, all of us motivated by fitness, you guys want to get pro cards or you're going after it. What would happen if fitness was taken away from you? It
You
would
see,
suck.
this happened to me multiple times throughout my life. You know, with the army, got taken away from me. Law enforcement, I was forced to medically retire. And, I think you mentioned it earlier, it's what you identify yourself as. If you identify yourself as XYZ, I'm a more spiritual based person. So you're idolizing something. If God takes that away, what are you gonna do? Who are you? Who is Chris without bodybuilding? Well, I'm still Chris. I'm still a father. I'm still a son of God. You know, that's just how I view it. But yeah, you can't idolize whatever you're doing because if it gets taken away, is that your purpose or you're gonna find another purpose?
Dude, I love that you said that. And like, I'm really big into philosophy. So the philosophy part of me is like, how can something get taken away from you that was never yours to own in the first place? You didn't own the army. You don't own bodybuilding. You don't own anything you do right now. I don't own speaking. I'm good at it. I'm killing it right now with my speaking career. But if that got taken away from me, I'd still be me and I still have the possibility to build something else. It doesn't mean it wouldn't suck, but remember, you don't own anything but your thoughts. That's it. So manage what you're responsible for, and that's your thoughts. Everything else, enjoy it while you have it, you know? And that could be for the rest of your life. It could be till tomorrow.
And that's why you have to be present because every day is a blessing. Every day that you wake up is another opportunity to walk in what your purpose is for that moment. Because like you said, it could get taken away. I got hit by a car by another police officer, suffered a traumatic brain injury, got fired because of this injury, had to, financially struggle and provide for my family, even though all this was not my fault.
Yep.
But what? Life goes on. And there are still crimes going on Miami Beach. There are still police officers working, but not me. So when I was stuck in my head, I'm fighting these battles in my head, and then like, okay, but let me find something else. Let me put my energy into something else, and you could always adapt, like you said earlier.
That's why it's so important. How could I? That's it. It.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like if you could take one thing from this call, this talk, asking yourself, how could I? How could I make this better? Or how could I make this worse? Don't do that. You know,
Yeah.
how you could make it worse and don't do it. You know, people like easier said than done. Absolutely better done than said.
Yeah.
by the way, we as human beings are always a work in progress. So it's like anyone listening, I'll speak for myself here, but like I know I've said a lot of things that might be inspirational, that are inspirational to people, but at the same time, it's important to know that I struggle greatly with being present. Like that's something I've struggled with my entire life. I've never fully been content with the things that I've achieved, like winning the European Championships as a lacrosse player, winning a national championship in college, like all these things that I should be proud of, state championships, bodybuilding, right? Like it's only until I sit down and start to reminisce and start to like consciously think about what I've achieved that I start to feel some sense of contentness, but it's very fleeting and quick. So what I have to, but the good thing is that because the over the past like year and a half, 2 years, I've changed who I have around me. I'm reminded about it a little more, and I'm gonna use that checkpoint analogy a little more often. Like I can check myself more often now to remind myself to be present, even though I'm naturally not a present person. You know, you watch the Derek Jeter documentary. A lot of us competitive people don't we hate losing more than we enjoy winning. And so you're constantly in this like fear of you're operating out of fear a lot. And here's the challenging thing as an athlete, a lot of the genetic makeup that makes a good athlete can also lead to a poor quality of life in terms of how you live it. So, like for me, I struggle with being present because I'm always trying to level up or achieve something. And in order to do that, I'm putting my energy towards being better. Well, guess what? You're putting your energy to being better. It's pretty darn hard to live in the past and enjoy what you've accomplished. So, I think it's okay. I don't think everything needs to be balanced. I think life balance is thrown around a little too much. I think it's totally okay to throw yourself in a bodybuilding prep and have that spectrum off a little bit. But again, I'm gonna just boil it back down to having the right people around you because I've noticed that over the past year, more often have I thought about being present than previously. And so I know it's a long-winded way of saying it, but I started to be a little more conscious of like a lot of the gifts that I have that's maybe helped me be a competitive athlete in my life have also harmed me on a day-to-day basis. So I've had to be a lot more conscious about enjoying the moment, living in the moment. Like for example, yesterday, G and I were on the treadmill together doing our cardio together, and I just reminded myself, wow, how cool is this that my coach and I are training for the exact same show in Vegas? Like that's a really cool moment. I know that when we're 60 years old, it's like we're gonna have these memories to like share with our grandkids, whatever. But yeah, like we were doing this together because you watch these like old school 90s videos of all the bodybuilders together and Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman together and reminiscing about it. And I'm like, I need to enjoy this now because I don't want to look back at those photos and think, wow, like that was just a blur. I want to really enjoy it and live in the moment.
So
What made that change for you mentally, Alex?
It was one hitting rock bottom last year, and that was really when I had to dig myself out of a hole mentally. And then it's just having the right people around me. You know, I was tired of being a people pleaser. And I realized that if I don't surround myself with people that just naturally, genuinely want good for me, that you can be the smartest, brightest, most positive person. But if you're around the wrong people, you're gonna your soul's gonna die. Like it's like a flower cannot blossom if the soil is rotten. So at some point you have to take accountability for yourself. But then once you've done that, you also need to have accountability for who you have around you. Because like I said, humans are flawed, right? So there are going to be days where you do bad habits or things that you're not used to doing or things that you do at a habitual pretense. But like to Chris's point, it's like if you have the right people around you, when you have those subconscious bad habits come back or you start thinking negatively, like when I get hard on myself, Chris is there to say, you know, yeah, but look at how far you've come and all this. So that I wasn't able to do myself in the moment, but he did. So I think that's really, Chris, what happened was I just made sure I had the right people around me so that when I had my bad days, I wasn't gonna beat myself up. I had people to lift me up.
And that, but also it changes that internal dialogue because if you're used to being criticized negatively with the people around you, then that becomes your internal voice. You know, I had this conversation with my friend Corey all the time. It's like, man, our first experience of life is our parents, right? You know, our family or whoever raised us. And that internal voice in your head, oh man, I'm doing something wrong. Where does that come from? You know, it's if you're constantly being yelled at and you're like, oh man, then you just become a shell of yourself. So if if your internal voice is not you, then you have other people controlling your life and they take control of the wheel and then they're driving your car. So how do you take control of your car?
Yeah, man. That's a good message from both of you. Perspective is everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we all have bad days, no matter how well you're doing. Like you're gonna have bad days, and you just. I made a post the other day about, we humans are flawed, but when you look in the mirror, like, are you gonna see a victim or are you gonna see a fighter? And just need to push forward to understand like life is not easy. Why I'm in bodybuilding, I think about this a lot. Of course it's for personal goals, but it's also me being a bit of a rebel because I see people in life now, we live in an age where mental health is at its worst, right? And people are unhealthier than ever. And I refuse to go with the flow of that mold. I refuse to let it change me. And so I'd rather be the outlier of saying, no, like I'm gonna get in shape, I'm gonna hit my goals, I'm not gonna just go the easy route. I'm not gonna just rely on ChatGPT to do this, this, and this, right? Like a lot of people are. I had a friend that reached out the other day and he said, can you help me with a workout plan? I said, sure. I asked a few questions. And then within 2 days, he was like, oh, don't worry. I went to ChatGPT and it told me what to do. And it was just kind of like a reminder of like how we're missing the point. And it kind of goes to what you said, Chris, earlier about the process is the whole point. So it's like, if you could have that pizza so easily, does it taste as good? If you could get in shape that easily, there's talk about pharmaceutical companies building a pill just to get you in shape. And we as humans have kind of lost our ability to enjoy the process and that kind of reward complex of you work hard at something, you achieve a goal, and you feel good about it. If you took a pill that in 2 weeks' time you were in better shape, are you really going to feel good about it? It's like when someone can afford a Porsche and they say like money doesn't solve all problems, right? Like if you have an abundance of money and that Porsche is now the same as getting like a Volvo, what kind of value does that have to you?
Earned, not given.
Exactly.
Everything.
I think it's important to remember whether you have abs or you are 40% body fat, neither is entitled a good or bad life. There are many bodybuilders I know who are absolutely miserable, and there are many fat people I know that are absolutely happy. The difference is how you choose to live your life and what you choose to do. If you cannot find happiness in the process, but you think you're better because you're competing, you're wrong. Flat out.
That's a loss already.
Too many people I see in the gym with their noses up, but they're so miserable. And they're not miserable because they did cardio. They're miserable because they're addicted to trying and impress other people that don't matter. They're addicted to getting a pro card. They're addicted to the things that they don't know how to find enjoyment in at all. So they delay that enjoyment. They have no clue how to be present. They have no clue how to even find peace in life because they're go-getters, bro. They're hustlers, bro. That's not cool. You think you're fucking cool because you are working hard and you don't know how to be happy? You think that's cool? That's not cool, dude. You know what's cool? Being able to find contentment with whatever you're doing, whether that's pursuing your pro card or pursuing your pizza. I don't care. If you can find contentment in your life, you're winning.
Yeah,
Anything else, that's failure to me.
yeah.
Pro card and you win all this shit, but you're unhappy, that's a failure to me. I'm not celebrating that. You don't get any claps from me. If you can't find fulfillment in the now, what are you doing? Who are you impressing? When you go to die, who's going to stand up and clap for you? Oh, nobody, because you cut everyone off.
That's why I have so much admiration for the people that have done 10 plus national shows and have yet to get their pro card. Like our friend Lynn the other day got her pro card. She was on our podcast earlier in the season, and national show after national show, second place, fifth place, back to second place, third place. And she finally just got her card at Universe. And it was just such a beautiful moment, seeing that, because so many people get so discouraged early on. They don't get their pro card right away, and it's the end of the world. Our friend Danny's competing this weekend. He's been in the same boat. I think he's been a national level competitor for like 10 years. Um, but that all that to say, quick side note here. This podcast is brought to you by Wolfpack. We align with their mindset of never average, always a wolf. Use code LIFTED at checkout, make your mark. We partnered with them for this exact reason. You stick with your pack. You don't give up on your grind, like Lynn, like Danny, and all the friends that we have. And Chris, it's been a pleasure to have you on. This is probably the deepest episode we've had by far. I think I'm gonna have a nightmare of a job trying to find all the reels out of this, because I think there's just so much gold here for people to.
The highlights.
Yeah, I
We
think
gotta
the
clip a
whole
lot of
the
that.
whole episode
100%.
could be a reel. Honestly. So we appreciate you coming on. Sincerely, this is why we love doing this, to meet people like you.
And Chris, can you tell our viewers and your fan base how they could get your book?
Yeah, so everything's on Amazon. My one book is called The Art of Changing Course, and everything else is just at my website, chrisruden.com.
Perfect.
Chris,
Awesome, brother.
we would love to have you again back on in the future. I
Sure.
know you have a secret endeavor coming up, but keep us in the loop. We always say everyone that comes onto our podcast, we bring on for a reason. We're very particular about our guests, right? We only want the positive minds that are going to uplift people, and we always consider our guests our friends from here on out. So it's been a pleasure to have you on, honestly.
I appreciate all of you, and thanks for what you're doing for the community, not just in bodybuilding, but just people in general. So, everyone is one perspective away from a better life, and if you believe that, give yourself a chance and just ask, how can I?
Much
Okay,
love,
man.
brother.
Appreciate you
All
Thank
guys.
right,
you.
Chris. All right.
Take care.
Bye.